Hello. For my second discovery project, I did an ancient Greek tile mosaic. I had took a tile class over the summer, a little bit of one, and kind of became fascinated with the tiny mosaic pieces. And so I thought it would be interesting to look at past mosaics and see if I could make one in the style of the ancient Greek. If you look into ancient mosaics, the Mesopotamia actually kind of started this, at least they're the first known people to kind of started mosaics, and they would use ivory and shells and colored stones. And their mosaics were usually found on the outside of walls, and it is believed that they were used as waterproof and shielding for the structure underneath. So it was kind of a protection against the weather, and they started to create designs of them to make them look more interesting. Once the Greeks started to learn about this technique, they are kind of the ones who started to really get into the detailed designs of mosaics and really start to make these elaborate pictures out of them. The ancient Greeks usually started making their mosaics with stone and then colored glass, and they were known for using smaller pieces that they would cut into smaller shapes, mostly squares, but then they would cut them into smaller pieces from there to fill in spaces to make their curved designs. A lot of their pictures started with the basic things like this owl or bird on top and this bird and this snake down here at the bottom. And the more that they were doing this, the more they figured out how to get colored glass and colored stones and add them into their mosaics. As this became popular, the Greeks started doing more detailed images within their tile mosaics and their stone mosaics. They tended to do these giant ones on floors or bigger ones on the side of walls. Some of them, just like the pottery, would represent things that were going on in their culture or their Greek gods and goddesses. But as they started to get more elaborate pictures and figures in the middle, they also started to add these very elaborate geometric frames around the edges, as you can see in these images here. You can see not only do they have an image in the middle, but each one of them is encased in a frame-like border and then some type of geometric design around that as well to create this really elaborate style of a frame encasing their image. So for my project, I decided I would kind of focus on a geometric design, and looking into how they used to do mosaics, not a lot has changed. The basic concept of how to do a mosaic is still the same, and so are a lot of the materials. And so I used just a 6x6 white square tile here, and then I had ordered some glass square mosaic pieces. For this project, I decided to stick with white, blue, and green. And so just like the ancient Greeks would do, the first thing I did was kind of sketch out some grid lines and sketch out a design of where I wanted my pieces to go on my tile. Once you have your design, you can start using a glue or a grout to attach your pieces to the ground or to my tile. And so I was using a well-bond glue and a paintbrush and just painting the glue on as then I would start to lay down my pieces in my pattern. And the trick with a mosaic is that you want to get the pieces close but not touching. You want to make sure that you're leaving a gap between each of your pieces as you start to build your design, because you're going to want to be able to fill them in with grout at the end to help stabilize all your pieces and kind of create that border of a mortar around each one to hold them in place. So as you start laying all your pieces, the trickiest thing for me was making sure to line them all up straight to get this very precise design of the green X in the middle and adding it onto the side going out towards the edges. And then in that Greek fashion, I decided to add that blue border to kind of set off the mosaic. Once I had all the pieces down, you do need to let the glue dry, just like the Greeks would have to do for at least 48 hours or so. And then you can come in and add your grout to really solidify your design and hold those pieces in place. So once I added my grout, I then used a sponge to wash off the excess and then let the grout dry for at least 24 hours before you decide to do anything with your mosaic tile. So there on the right is my finished mosaic tile piece that is kind of in that geometric fashion. I had lots of fun doing this, creating is one of my top things. And if you are interested in learning more about any of the ancient Greek tile mosaics, these are the works cited that I use. That top YouTube video was kind of one of my favorite ones that gave a little bit about the history and everything, and the other two are articles of the information. Thank you for joining me today.